computer. There we go.
Yes, it's recording.
All right. Okay, CPNS students, thank you guys very much for joining us in this bonus meeting. We decided to put this meeting together because we're starting to see even more additional value that you can get out of the CPNS course. And we've been talking in our executive meetings about it and how great it is. And as I got excited, I said, we should just have a meeting with everybody and really kind of share with you some of the ideas that we have on how you can capitalize on this course even greater than just learning the content and using it as you go along as an instructor, program director, salesperson, and so forth. We also just kind of wanted to make sure that we communicate with you guys properly and cover all of the important details about the program. Once again, whether you know it or not, just kind of reiterating the important factors, the takeaways from each program. Be clear on what your assignments are, what the assignment deadlines are, so that we can move forward to the next semesters. Also, we're gonna give a shout out to all of those who completed your assessments in each particular program, and then we're gonna highlight what's coming up as far as the future semesters on this CPNS course. So we're gonna go in order here today based on the courses that were released. We're gonna start with Mike, then we're gonna do Kelly, then John, then myself. So we're going to go ahead and turn it over to Mike. Mike, you were first. You got 5 minutes to kind of give them a brief overview of your course, how to use it, how to repurpose it with content to share with your audience, your parents, teachers, coaches, and so forth, and then go over your assignment and what your assignment due date is.
Sure, thank you. So I got to go first, and my course was the role of the neurotransmitters in the learning environment. Hope you guys had a lot of fun with it. So we covered the 4 main neurotransmitters that we leverage in all of the skills teaching methodologies in the class planners: dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins, what we call DOSE. We learned how to leverage each of those in the class environment, how to build anticipation and use reward systems to encourage dopamine secretion, how serotonin can be used to build a sense of well-being that makes kids feel confident and competent. We also learned how just through working out, the endorphin levels will go up, which will help cut those other bad, we'll say bad, neurotransmitters such as cortisol and adrenaline. Not necessarily bad, just not always the best in the learning environment. And how really building connection helps that oxytocin to build, which encourages people to want to be like you and with you, which means they're a little more likely to learn from you. And then our assignment was, Kelly and I worked together on this one. So your assignment was to pick either front of house or back of house. So either your sales process or your tour through the lobby or your marketing presence, something like that, front of house. And then back of house would have been your teaching, your private lessons, your interactions with parents and students, everything that happens after they become a member. And then to show how you're using all of those neurotransmitters together as a holistic process to enhance either the enrollment process or the student's experience in your school. And it could have just been a short little video telling about it, or you could have role played it, or maybe if you had permission from your students, you could have shot yourself live in that class. So the due date for that, I believe we decided was 4/6. So you have about a week and a half or so to finish that up if you haven't already. And moving forward, what we want you to be able to do with this is not just use it, which is powerful and important, but to use it to show why you're an expert, to take it out of the class and out of the enrollment process and start becoming an expert, not for your school, but for your community. So one of the things, to give you an example, that I'm working on now is leveraging the media, not social media, but the media, to get out as an expert, trying to get interviewed in a lot of different areas so that people recognize me as an expert in parenting, business, child development, and anytime they need somebody to speak on these topics, I am prepared. And one of my prepared platforms is the DOSE method. So I can talk about parenting and why some of the challenges that you're having with your child are related to DOSE. I can talk about teaching and how teachers can better engage their students with DOSE. So I'm not necessarily teaching DOSE, but I'm showing how it's relevant to other people's challenges. And when you can get out there and become an expert, now you're not just, well, I'm an expert, please sign up with me. You're an expert that people are going to find, well, how can I get more from them? So that's one of the ways that I'm using it. And it's been going really well. You know, once you get that traction going, you get your first 2 or 3 interviews, other people who have watched those broadcasts now start picking you up. And the momentum really starts going to the point where now people are starting to know my name beyond our little community of skills and Patchogue where my school is.
That's awesome, Mike. You know, you just taking the dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphin terms and using it in your vocabulary when you're talking to your parents, when you're talking to teachers, coaches, therapists, the media, like what you're doing, Mike, it really now labels you as an expert, because I've recently been talking with several therapists and some of the therapy groups that I belong to, kind of picking their brain on what's going on right now in the pandemic and what their feedback and take is on it. And I always ask them, what is your take on how dose affects their behavior? And I didn't get one therapist who was able to turn around and clearly say, I think it does this, this, and this. As a matter of fact, one of the therapists said, what is dose? And I was like, so this is really, really good stuff. You know, I'm listening to the book by Dr. Sanjay Gupta. It's called Keeping Sharp. And one of the chapters he talks about on as far as ongoing education is that formal education actually can be a little bit more harmful to your abilities in your particular field, because you think you have a formal education and you stop learning, and you think that that degree defines who you are, and you don't really study the additional content that you need to really narrow in your craft. He said that anybody who really perfects their craft and studies their craft on an ongoing basis and continues to learn is far more of an expert than somebody who carries a degree in that particular field. And I was like, yes, this is exactly what the CPNS program is. And that's what dose, one of the values about dose is that it's something that not a lot of people are talking about. You're not getting it in formal education, but it's so relevant to child behavior today, now, more than ever. So that's great. Okay.
You know, and just one last thought is
Sure.
One of the challenges, especially as like we're delving into this whole social work therapist environment, one of the challenges they have is that they're so, you know, ephemeral with some of the things they try to apply. And sometimes it's hard to make connections between what the therapist wants to have happen and what you as the patient can understand. Creating this link of dose where it's, you know, because I'm very science minded, I got to see it. Being able to say, well, here's the thing going on psychologically, here's the chemicals behind it and how you can take step-by-step measurable things to do. That has made it so powerful, connecting our social workers with our students.
Yes. Now, if you did take Mike's course, it was probably extremely overwhelming. And you probably said, I hope all the courses aren't going to be like this. And it was kind of hard to get through if you weren't intently paying attention with the desire to really learn and grasp it, especially for some of the younger instructors listening to some of the scientific stuff. Keep in mind that as we built this program, we didn't really narrow in how brief we wanted it to be or how detailed we wanted it to be. And Mike took it to an advanced level. So I do forecast that as we are building out the next semester, for those of you who complete the first round of the CPNS course, you can then go for your advanced pediatric Ninja Specialist, and then the following year, your master's. So this is more of the advanced course. And I think that we talked about Mike making a more brief one for the next level. So you'll just have to complete both of those, but it'll count. But anybody new coming in for the next rotation of these courses, they'll get the one that Mike is creating right now. So you just got the advanced level of his particular course, which is just challenges you even more. What a way to pivot though, right? That's how we do things, is we put out content, we observe it, we get the feedback, we go, was this too hard? Was this too easy? How can we make it better? And that's what we're doing. Mike, thank you so much. Next, we're gonna go on to Kelly. Now, Kelly, of course, you have a degree in child psychology. Is that the specific
Just
degree?
Psychology, not specifically child psychology.
Okay. Degree in psychology, and her course was on theories of motivation. Now, the reason why theories on motivation is important is because we got to understand that what motivates me may not be the same thing that motivates you. And what motivates one kid may not be the same thing that motivates another person. I know my son personally, he's motivated by getting things right. He's not motivated by winning, although I see him always wanting to win. There are some kids who are motivated by winning, not failing, and really understanding the different theories on motivation will help you understand how to really hone in on your students on an individual level. And really, how powerful is that for you to be able to tell a parent, they have two different children and maybe they're comparing them and say, you can't compare them because this child is motivated by this, but this child is motivated by that. And what that does to a parent's perspective, it really changes the parenting field. It changes the game field when you are positioning yourself as a child development center or leveling up your business compared to other martial arts schools in the area. That's a dialogue that we've been having, especially with Tim, when somebody was trying to do a price shop and saying, well, your competitor's charging this. And well, martial arts is not my competitors, right? The closest thing would be a child therapist, and they charge $150 to $200 an hour. So if you want to price compare, you need to be comparing us with this is due to this knowledge that we have and the ability, not just to know it though, is to implement it. So Kelly, if you can give just kind of an overview of the theories of motivation, just as a recap for everybody, just in case you didn't watch it or you just want a quick little refresher as we're talking about your assignment and how to implement it.
Sure. So motivation, as a trainer and as a teacher, this to me is a fascinating subject, and I think probably an underrated field of study. But theories of motivation in relationship to how people learn, obviously, it's really the process that not only initiates, but also guides and maintains our goal-oriented behavior. So it's really what causes us to act in the first place. It's the driving force behind our human actions. So it's obviously, there's so many different factors that influence motivation. And I think a misunderstanding is that motivation is only external, but it's not. It's biological, it's emotional, it's social. And all of these things combined affect the way we are motivated and how long we're motivated and how well we do with tasks. So motivation is responsible for obviously directing the behavior, but also high motivation leads to increased effort and energy. It increased time spent on tasks, so better attention span, better focus. It helps with not only initiation, but persistence of those activities. It also enhances cognitive processing and understanding for future tasks and future learning. And it also helps us determine consequences in life that are both reinforcing and punishing. So in this course, we looked at really 5 different perspectives of motivation. And we studied a lot of different psychologists and their theories, which is what psychology is. It's a bunch of people making educated guesses about what's going on in human behavior, and then running experiments and studies and analyzing behavior and coming up with hypotheses about why things exist. So for those of you who are more science-minded, who might prefer more fact, black and white, this is what this chemical does, this course might have been difficult for you because it is more so just learning what other people have come up with. The 5 different perspectives that we talked about were the behavioral perspective, cognitive perspective, developmental approach to motivation, social cognitive approach, and the constructivist approach. Really, when we're talking about the behaviorist perspective, we're talking about learning and behavior that is affected by a stimulus and a response relationship. So something happens and we react to it, and that's what's causing us to be motivated. So it's a very external perspective of motivation. And you might remember specific theories of John Watson or Pavlov and his dogs and the conditioning model. A cognitive perspective of motivation takes into consideration the mental state, the mental structures, the biological structures that are affecting learning through how you perceive situations, how you remember situations, how you think about things, how you speak, how you problem solve, how information is actually processed in the brain, how it's stored, how it's retrieved, how it's forgotten, etc. So it's an interesting approach because we're all born with a brain. We know how it works. And that's obviously those different structures and mental states is going to affect the way that we're motivated. We'll see in developmental perspective that there are changes that occur in learning over time. And that is influenced by stages of development, which all of you are very familiar with being in skills. So we learned about Piaget's 4 model of cognitive developmental motivation, and really understanding the different stages of which children can be expected to learn and how they learn. And then finally, and we've got 2 more. So the social cognitive perspective, which looks at learning through observation, learning through modeling, watching someone else, observing, and then being motivated by others, which we know is a huge component for us in the martial arts industry as one example. Finally, the constructive perspective, which is really a self-initiated learning. So it's self-directed, it's creative, it's innovative, it's putting the child in an environment and allowing them to create their own learning. It's collaborative learning with others. It's not something that a teacher gives them or something that they provide for them, but rather the student directs and initiates, and the teacher just facilitates. You see this in a Montessori type school setting where it's very much student-led. And all of these perspectives have enormous value. There's something I know when I went through this course teaching it, I was having aha moments left and right. Wow, I really love this about this perspective, and I really love this about this perspective. And there's value in each of them. So I don't think that there is one that's right and one that's wrong, but rather this comprehensive model of understanding why people act, why they behave the way they do. So again, we looked at all these different theories, all these different studies, examples from, like I said, Watson and Pavlov, Piaget, all the way to Bloom and his taxonomy and his theory of mastery, learning certain skill sets of a lower order and mastering them before being able to think higher level. There's a process that happens mentally that we're not able to think in a creative or an abstract way until we've really learned and understood the knowledge in a more conceptual understanding, and really just memorization as the very first level of that, which is Bloom's taxonomy is something I use all the time with training employees. So all that to be said, hopefully it gave you some insight as to why not only skills is so successful, because it's making associations like, oh, that's why Melody came up with that. Duh. That's why this works so well with kids. That's why from ages 2 to 7, they're so focused on themselves and they can't share because developmentally they have a cognitive awareness of being egocentric. So hopefully it was more about making associations and having those aha moments than it was about necessarily learning something new. And you didn't have to recreate the wheel here. These people have already done the work. They've already studied the material. It's just for you to know and for you to relate to and be able to speak about, as Mike said, to parents, to whoever it is that you're trying to educate about your program.
Yes.
I don't need to explain the assignment because I think Mike did that, but.
Yes. So, and just to recap, if you notice that every semester there's one science course and one psychology course. So that's why Mike's was the science and Kelly's was the psychology. In semester number 2, the science was the stages of development. The psychology was the parent skills. In semester number 3, the science is the brain skills, which is going to be, we flipped them. The psychology is the teaching skills. So one's really scientific facts and one is theories. That's what makes the Certified Pediatric Ninja Specialist course so amazing, is that it's a combination of science and psychology. Now, what I think that it would be great for each of you to do to take this course to the next level is to list out those 4 theories of motivation and a kind of a key takeaway for each one of them. Because even I took it, I loved it. Even right now, I'm having an aha moment. So when parents say, well, how do I keep this kid from quitting? He says he wants to do another sport. If you can identify what motivates that child, you can then translate the benefits of your program based on what motivates them. Same thing for your staff, right? Same thing for your team. And that's why Kelly does so great when she's coaching her teams. It's because she figures out what motivates them first. And then she targets that particular angle of motivation. And as a school owner, as a leader, that is extremely powerful. Knowing what motivates Mike is not necessarily going to motivate Kelly, is not necessarily going to motivate John. And how can I target their motivations based on these theories? So that was great. Now, Kelly and Mike's assignment and Kelly's assignment, we had a due date of 4-9 to 4-16. So we want you to have, if you can do an assignment for each of those courses, that would be awesome. If you want to do it together, blended, because they have the same assignment, that's okay too. But I really like to challenge myself. I would do something for on Mike's that you can turn around and repurpose, and then do something like Kelly's that you can turn around and repurpose. So
I just have one more thing.
Sure.
You know, because mental health is such a an appropriate area of focus for all of us right now. You know, the constructivist theory of motivation talks about people's cultural upbringings and their worldview and their background and their all of those things contributing to how they're motivated, and certainly their emotional state is very much a part of that. So understanding that those things that are happening at home, I know we had this discussion on some of the live calls, is really affecting how they're being able to show up in class, is very important for us to know and understand as teachers, that it's not just what you're doing, it's also their circumstances in their lives that affect their ability to learn.
Yes, 100%. And we're going to be diving into that even more as we go along, because we're sharing all kinds of information right now with pandemic and COVID, and I have a lot of upcoming seminars that I'll be covering. So we definitely will dive into that. Kelly, thank you very much. We're going to go on to semester number 2. Course number 1 was on the stages of development. Now, if you've taken the stages of development course in the Skills University, or you've taken my instructor certification, or you've taken Clayton's, even Epperson did a stages of development, I believe, or did some certification training. Yep. You'll notice that there are a lot of similar content, but the way that John delivered on this was pretty inspiring, because I loved seeing his take on a theory that I put out in the industry a long time ago. It was not necessarily controversial, but it wasn't really embraced, and a lot of people marginalized it because they didn't want to separate their kids based on ages. As a matter of fact, even in the Century group yesterday, somebody posted, what are your age groups? And unless you were a skills member, you still have 7 to 12-year-olds in the same class. Did you see that, John, Mike? There was like dozen minimum that have 7-year-olds and 12-year-olds in the same class. And I'm like, a 7-year-old is in 2nd grade. They're just learning how to write their name in cursive. They're learning how to write a 3-sentence paragraph. They're learning double-digit math. A 12-year-old is in the 7th grade. They are writing research papers. They are doing algebra, Pythagorean theory. And you have those two in the exact same class at the same time trying to learn the same thing. You're going to have a roller coaster class where if it's challenging enough for the 7th grader, the 2nd grader can't keep up and they're going to quit because it's getting too hard. And then if it's easy enough for the 2nd grader, the 7th grader is going to get bored and they're going to lose interest. So it just makes a lot of sense to really understand the stages of development and why it's so important, especially if you want to separate yourself from other schools in the area. That's why the age-specific concept is so great. So John, I want you to give a quick overview of your course and also what your assignment was and your deadline.
Perfect. So mine was about the why, kind of like Melody's been saying. Why does the body do what it does? Why do we feel how we feel? Why do we get angry and all that stuff? So, I wanted to come to a point where I can figure out that one thing that triggers the entire system. And after reading The Whole Brain Child and also reading his second book, Brainstorm, which is the adolescent book, for me, it was like, we're going to ignite the brain. It's going to be the brain. It's going to be the one thing that makes us work, makes us wake up in the morning. It's the motor for the entire body. So when we're talking about, why do kids do what they do? My thing is, well, why did Melody create the program the way she created it? Why do we have the stages of development? Why is it, emotional, social? Why? There was just a lot of whys for me, and it came down to, again, the brain. Okay, why is it when I'm asking a child, why did you do that, and they say, I don't know? Doesn't that frustrate you as a parent or frustrate you as a teacher? Like, what were you thinking? I don't know. It's like, okay, how is it that they don't know? Like, why is that their favorite answer, right? The more we kept on looking into it, it became to be the brain. Okay. Why do teens have mood swings? Why do parents get frustrated at their kids when things don't go their way? It went back to the brain. So I wanted to understand the brain even deeper, and just by simply reading the whole brain child and the way the brain was broken down into the quadrants, the way it was broken down from the upstairs, downstairs brain, the left side on the right side. What's the purpose of the left side? What's the purpose of the right side? What makes us live? What makes us breathe? What gives us the opportunity to categorize the information the way we want to categorize it? When we're learning, where does the information go, right? So I got a little, I guess, on the engineering nerdy side and went with the brain. And just by going through the course and being able to go at every single stage of development and understanding at this age, the brain grows this much, the brain does this. These things happen. The kids feel this way. The kids act that way. The kids start behaving in a certain way, right? It explained things to us. And then when you're going to that next age group, they might outgrow something, right? But then there is something else. There's another issue, or there's another something that happens where, we're going, wait, they transitioned out of this stage, right? They used to be scared or they feared things. Now they no longer fear those things, but they have other fears in their life, right? So for me, it came down to simply understanding the brain by breaking it down, by being able to explain to parents when they walk in the door, why is their pain point a pain point when it's really not a pain point, okay? And for those of you that kind of hopped on early, I was telling everybody else, it's really important for us when we're talking to parents to speak to them in a way, know our information, know, like, if there's a pain point that they come in the door and they tell you, well, my 3 and 4-year-old is acting out of control and he doesn't have any self-discipline. Back in my head, I'm like, what do you expect your 4-year-old to have discipline? Like, define. And I always go like, what do you mean? Right? Because I don't want to come in sound like egotistical or anything, but I can't tell her, well, he's supposed to act that way, right? But I'm like, explain, right? So when they explain things to me, I'm able to go back and say, well, did you know that? And then we start talking about the brain skills. For us in our studio, when we start doing the walking conversation, we totally revamped it as soon as the brain skills came out. And the first thing we introduce people as they walk in the door is the brain skills. And I realized by simply making that shift, explaining the brain skills first, it makes sense to go into the stages of development. It makes sense to go into the we believe concept and be able to talk to them about the whole brain, the whole child approach, right? It makes sense why our classes are broken up into not just age specific, but skill specific, right? And those skills are designed in a way that allows us to work with the children, enhance that children at that level. So your 3-year-old may as well be acting like a 6-year-old when they're 4 because of what we do and how we do things in the class, right? We talk to them about the teaching approach, right? So, and this where Michael's course and Kelly's course comes in play. Now that I know how the reward system works and how the reward system works with the brain, and they both work together, right? Bringing in the dose concept, bringing in the motivation theory concept, the parent has no choice but to stand there and go like, whoa. And then I always finish with, was that too much? And they're like, no, like I've never been in a place that was so like just full of information, know the details. I don't ask, what do you do for a living? Okay. But it never fails. I'll get a parent or two that says, oh, by the way, I do have a degree in psychology, or I have a psychiatry office, or things of that sort. I'm like, did I do good? And they're like, you nailed it, right? So for me, up here, that little walnut size doodah really tells us why kids do what they do, why we as parents need to shift our methods, why we as instructors, leaders, need to shift our approach from working with children the way we did. I literally walked up to my kids numerous times, especially this year since I finished the course, and I said, I'm so sorry. I really am. I'm sorry for the way I brought them up. I'm sorry for the way I've treated them, because it wasn't a fault of their own. Like, had I known how the brain works, like 20 years ago when we decided to conceive kids. Now, of course, this whole entire time, Jennifer's slapping me on the back of my head going, okay, you know what? You walk away, let me do the parenting. And I just came to a point, I was like, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so John, you know, I love that you took the physical, intellectual, emotional, and social stage of development, understanding a child as a whole, and brought the brain into it, which is just an extension of what you're learning on the basic instructor certification, which again shows the value of this. Because I've had people say, do I need the CPNS course? Because I've already taken your stage of development course multiple times. Now you can see how this elevates it to that next level. John, what was your assignment again?
I'm sorry. That's right. My assignment was for you to give us a very abbreviated takeaway from each one of the stages, from each one of the pies in each one of the stages of development. So 16 things altogether. It doesn't have to be anything big. And turn it in by the 30th of April, but try to create it to be so small, 30 seconds to a minute long, and go ahead and put it into a content format to go out to your community about who you are and why you do what you do and what's your niche.
Yes. You know, I think there's a meme that's floating around where it's an Elon Musk quote that basically said, you know, back in the day, you needed a research paper to explain your thought. And now if you can't explain it to me in 30 seconds or less, I'm not going to be interested. And that's important. So brevity is very important. Now you can repurpose this content, and that's the great thing about it. So if you do 16 takeaways and you do a video of you talking about it, if you write your script out first, then you have a text takeaway that you can send out with an image. You do a video, you can send that video out. You can send it to your audiences on your social media platforms via email, and then you could do that and you post it on your YouTube page. And then you got 16 pieces of content that you can circulate through. That's valuable content right there. And then you can take those 16 takeaways and create a stages of development playlist and send that to teachers, coaches, therapists, people in your community, post it in your parenting groups and your local communities, and explode your knowledge and reputation based on this. And I know that it's Peggy Richards in particular said that one of her instructors also teaches at a summer camp, and she was talking about the stages of development and teaching skills, and the supervisor was blown away and said, well, can you come teach our coaches? So yes, the content that you create, you can use to turn around and train coaches and teachers in your area. How impactful is that on a purpose level, right? To make your communities a better place. So that is due April 30th. It sounds like a lot of content, but it really isn't a lot when you really start to narrow it down. Okay.
Yep. One more thing. You know how you're talking about creating your content and stuff and read it? There is an app out there called BigVU. You can insert in your information that you want to speak, and your own phone becomes a teleprompter and a video at the same time. So
can you type that in the
yes,
in the message thing, that way people can see?
It makes it so much easier.
Awesome. Thank you very much, John. Okay, so John's was a science, right? It's based on facts. These aren't theories. It's factual that children at this age behave this way because their brain is underdeveloped. The downstairs brain overrides the upstairs part of the brain, which is your prefrontal cortex, which is your impulse control and executive functioning and so forth. The next course was mine, and it's on parent skills. And these are theories, concepts and ideas that if you apply this skill when you're working with your child, you should get better results. And here's why, or here's what behavior your child is having, and here's a theory on a skill that you can apply to help it. Again, these are theories, but this is a proven theory, especially with my son. That's why when I hear people say, I wish I would have known this 20 years ago, I'm like, I'm so glad that I had a child late and a child after I created all this content, because it's working wonders with Van. He went from crying when it was time to go to school to now begging to stay at after school because he wants to hang out with all his homies and play in the playground and play and so forth. He's such a first-time listener when it's time to get ready, when it's time to brush his teeth, time to go to bed. The only challenge that we're having is getting him to eat healthier foods, which is always a process, especially in this stage of development where his taste buds are now kind of starting to transition. So they're very bland. So he's not really wanting to try sushi or anything. We went to a sushi restaurant last night and he wasn't having it. So we had to get him chicken tenders and tater tots. But anyway, going back to the parent skills, these parent skills are, if you apply them with intent, it's going to improve your child's behavior. It's going to improve your parent-child relationship. And I'm seeing a theme, and if you're paying attention on social media in the skills groups, you're seeing on a regular basis, people are posting, this is a behavior that I'm seeing and I need help. And really, as Kelly mentioned, it comes back to what their home life is. A lot of these children's behaviors can be counterattacked by a parent working with their child with intent. And that, when I mean intent, is I'm intentionally applying this skill with my child at home in the hopes that it's going to help them become better and improve our relationship, and that'll help reprogram their brain and improve their behavior, not just here, but also in the school. So I always end with, there's no such thing as a perfect parent, but if you perfect the parent skills, you will see an improvement in your child's behavior. If you have been sharing the parent skills and you're getting feedback, then you know what I mean. So the way that my course was designed is I started out with a little poem just to kind of get you thinking creatively about why the skill is important to the child. And I wrote those poems, I read them to my son, and he loved them, to help him understand what the skills were. Then I gave you 2 lessons for each particular skill that's related towards common behaviors, that are challenges that parents are having, and then applicable tips. And then I also gave you a scale of 1 to 5 where parents can measure where are they on that scale. Now, the cool part about this is there's 8 parent skills. There's 2 behaviors per parent skill. So there's 16 different behaviors that are very common. So if a parent comes to you and says, my child throws temper tantrums, you can immediately check your parent skills resources, go to the direct parent skill, to the direct lesson, give them some tips, and then also say on a scale of 1 to 5, where are you right now with this? Are you at a 1, which is you're not applying it? And you're 2, you're like, nah. 3, kinda. 4, yes, you're doing it, you're getting better. Or are you at a 5? And I guarantee you, when you share this scale with the parents, a lot of them are going to be at the 3. And that's okay. That's where the average parent is, right? So you say you want to get to a 4 and even a 5 if you want this behavior to go away. And it takes time, it takes intent, and so forth. And where else do you get this roadmap? This clear, concise roadmap that gives you the step-by-step tools that you need to do to help the parents. So there's many different ways that you can use the parent skills content. Number 1 is you be mindful, and when parents come to you, you go back to your resources and you reference it. Number 2 is you share systematically this content with your parents via email, via text, via your social media platforms, and via your Facebook groups. And number 3 is you can actually host a parenting seminar, like Kelly said, and John, and even Mike. You know, the best way you learn this content is by teaching it, right? It's one thing to absorb the information. That's why we're giving you the assignments. So we want you to not only absorb the information, but translate it. That way your mind processes it. We want to integrate more neurotransmitters in your brain so that it stays with you and it is part of your working memory when you're talking with parents. But when you start teaching the parent skills content to other parents, that's when you really become an expert at it. So that's a great repurposing way. You can charge for it. You can make it for free, however you want to do it. Feel free to use the podcasts for these particular parent skills. So if a parent comes to you with a serious problem and you can narrow down which particular skill they need to work on, you can give them that podcast. Watch what happens. When a parent goes, I listened to that podcast, oh my God, I've been applying it, and just in 48 hours, it's made a world of difference. That's your value right there. That's where you're charging $299 for your program, because you're not just teaching kicking and punching. You're helping a child develop as a whole. The martial arts is just a vehicle. So this is a really great course to help you as a parent or to help other parents. But really what it's coming down to, and what it's going to come down to this year in particular, and probably into 2022, is when parents come to you to fix their child, it starts with you fixing them, or them fixing themselves. So let's not take the burden on ourselves thinking, what kind of strategies can I integrate into my classes to help this child's behavior? Do I take away their belt? Do I hold them back? Do I not give them their stripe because of these behaviors? I believe telling the parents to use these parent skills at home is the more successful method, and the method that's going to get the highest level of value out of your programs, and it'll take the burden off of you. Right? Because how many times have we absorbed that burden where parents come to you with a behavior issue, and now you feel the pressure that you have to be the one to fix their kid, and it's a challenge and a struggle. And sometimes you do a really good job on it, but the burden shouldn't be entirely on you. The burden should really be back on the parents. And if you have a parent who says, my child has this behavior, and you show them all 8 parent skills, and they go, oh, I'm at a level 5 on all of those, you have them call me. Because I either want to hire them, or I want to put them in check in a melody way, you know, in a nice way. So anyway, my assignment was to put together 2 takeaways per parent skill. So you have 8 parent skills. That's again 16 takeaways. And this can be a written report. It can be a video. I want your takeaways to be 3 sentences or less, though. And that's the important thing, is brevity. Like Elon Musk said, if you can't teach it to me in 30 seconds, you've lost my attention. Right? And even Albert Einstein said, if you can explain it enough, if you can't explain it enough for a 6-year-old to understand, then you don't know it well enough. That's another thing. And another thing that comes to mind is I made a post today on my 5 Bullet Friday where I talked about how I got a private sit down with Gary Vee at an event. It was kind of a barter situation for me speaking. And we talked for 15 minutes. And when I say we talked, I talked for 10 minutes. All he did was ask me a couple of questions, and I went, blah, 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 blah. And he sat there and he said, okay. And he gave me 3 bullet points in 5 minutes that changed the path of my company and the path of myself as a professional. And we were at 200 schools at the time. And this was 4 years ago. So we're over 1,200 schools right now. So his brevity is really what got me, because he kept it short and sweet. So make your tips short and sweet. I recommend you do a multi-purpose. I recommend that you do a little text takeaway, but also shoot a video. One of my favorite parent skills assignments that was turned in was by Nina Budd. And she did a parent skills video for each one. It was 30 seconds and it had the takeaways with images. She did it on Canva. It was very creative. And now she could repurpose that content on YouTube. She can send that via text, shoot it out via email, put it on her social media platforms. We're really giving you tools, not just so you can learn as a student, but you can turn around and share immediately with your community. That's your own work, right? We're teaching you, and then you're doing these assignments to turn around and now say that this is authentic to me. Based on what I learned, this is what I created from it. So it's a very, very powerful tool. My assignments, the deadline for that is May 14th. So again, Kelly and Mike's are due on April 16th. John's are due April 30th. Mine are due by May 14th. If we don't get those assignments in by that time, you have to wait till the next cycle, because it's going to be very hard for us to manage all 40 people and trying to keep up with all of those things. So with that said, we're going to really quickly name out the people who have completed their assignments for each of the programs. Michael, do you have your list?
I came running in on fire today, so I do not have my list in front of me.
Kelly, do you have your list?
I have the list for Mike and myself.
Yeah, it's on Facebook.
What I meant to say was Kelly has that list for me.
Okay.
I got you, bro. All right. So we have Adam Martinez. We have Alex and Meg. Oh God, I'm gonna hack everybody's last name. I apologize.
You can just say their first names.
Okay, Alex and Meg.
Alex and Meg.
Alicia Iverson, Andrew, Art, Chad, Clayton, Jenna, Ron, HCC Ching,
Cassandra,
Josh, Nina, Peggy, Tim, Wendy, Rebecca, and Dan Hart.
I'm very jealous. You guys got a lot more people completed your assignments than me, but that's because you guys were the first ones. Okay.
We got them before they went to sleep
so
after
you
my
guys,
presentation.
what we're going to do, guys, is we decided to create these certificates, and they're certificate templates. So Kelly, John, Mike, myself, we're going to email these certificates to you. And then you'll just print it out and you'll fill it in. Our signature's on there, and you'll fill in the date. And we give you 3 years for this to be valid for your certificate of completion. So hang those up, display them. When you fill them out, post them on social media, brag about your completions on these. John, do you have your list?
Yes, ma'am. I have Art, Jason, Noel, Cassandra, Nina, Dan, Tim, and Eric.
All right. And mine are Cassandra, Noel, Jason, Wendy, Art, Nina, Epps, Tim, and Eric. So if your name wasn't listed on these, you know what your deadlines are to get them completed. So now we halfway through, guys. We have the next semester is going to be teaching skills done by Mike. I'm really excited about that because I can't wait to see his take on the teaching skills, followed by the brain skills. And these are going to be fun. We're getting better at this as we go along. And the brain skills assignments is you're going to be learning how to write skills drills with these brain skills, which is going to be really a lot of fun. And imagine once you're done, how we can crowdsource those drills and add them to share them with the skills community. It's going to be super cool. And then we end it with Jen and Kelly. So John and Jen were actually a duo. John, Jen's is on child disorders.
Yes, she's already, she's okay, because of how everybody else did their course and it was like so big. She's having to really condense those disorders. But yeah, no, I'm like, she's passing it along to me and I'm going like, whoa, this is going to be interesting. This is going to be awesome.
Yeah, great. And then Kelly, your final course?
Learning styles.
Yes. So that's going to be important. Can you give a quick overview of that?
Well, obviously people learn differently. So we're going to just dive into the different ways people learn best. Kind of sort of the opposite approach of teaching styles, which is what we focused on in semester 1.
Yep.
So we'll just keep exploring the best way we can help our students.
Excellent.
Our students.
So
also, we forgot Stephanie, so we wanted to give Stephanie a quick shout out because she apparently did complete Mike and I's.
Excellent. So you could see that this next semester, the science is going to be brain skills, the psychology is the teaching skills, and then in the final semester, the science is the childhood disorders, the theories is going to be the learning styles, which is all very cool. So you're going to be completing 8 courses for science, for psychology, and then we will have the Pediatric Ninja Specialist final exam or final gathering at our MegaCon. It's going to be on that Thursday. It's going to be on Thursday. Don't have the specific dates yet because Sarada is still not really allowing us to book it yet because of COVID, but we're looking at the end of semester. If for some reason we don't do the MegaCon because the resort just, we can't make the deadline because it's all very tricky, we will have a gathering probably either at John's school or we'll have a gathering down here to everybody can come to for free and have a party and kind of do a recap and a formal ceremony. You'll get really cool certificates and everything like that. You'll get a cool pin that you can wear and lots of other cool swag that we're going to make for you guys. Okay. Any questions while we have you guys on here? And of course, I originally wanted this to be half hour, but there was so much content and there's nothing wrong with that because nobody's fallen asleep that I see of except for Chad because that's why he's hidden.
I did not mention some of the people who did the course, kind of like not all the way yet. They didn't finish it yet. They just send it to me in pieces. So I didn't mention the names yet. So okay. I apologize if I didn't call you out.
Okay. All right. Any questions? Hopefully you don't. Hopefully we're answering all your questions. Yes.
Jenna.
So if we wanted to redo one of the assignments that we already submitted, are we allowed to do that?
Absolutely. Yes. I'm big on reruns because the reruns are always better, right? But you know, when you watch a movie and then you watch the rerun of the movie, like the Queen's Gambit, you really get into it because you know it's going to happen next, so you absorb even more information. So that was a great question. Thank you very much.
You know, just an interesting answer to turn that around back on you. Think about all the times when a child has failed something and you say, that's life. That's really not life. We as adults get to do things over all the time. So when you ask a question like that, make sure you turn it back around and service your kids the same way and let them be better each time.
Great. Okay, other questions? Final thoughts. I want to thank you guys very much for being the legacy group, the first group going through this program. I'm already having parents, teachers, coaches that I've been talking to in the community that are very interested in this. I see this being an opportunity for you guys once you reach your level, your mastery level on this, having your own CPNS group that you're facilitating in your community. So there's lots of big ideas that can unfold from this, and you guys are going to be a big part of it. So thank you guys very much for being there, for being on point, for attending this meeting, and for all of your support. And of course, if there's one ask that I can ask of you guys, is to share the benefits of this program with other people, or not necessarily share, but brag, because when you brag about it, it gives you more motivation, but it'll motivate and inspire other people. You never know who's going to say, you know what, I saw Wendy's post, or I saw Eric's post, or Tim's post, or Ep's post, and it inspired me to jump on board, and man, this is a game changer for me. So you can help change other people's lives, which carries over to their communities as well, which is one of the best purposes you can have in life. Right. One of the things I'm reading with Sanjay Gupta is that people's brains dissolve when they don't have purpose anymore. And right now, this is one of the greatest purposes you can have, is to help your community, particularly with children. And it's programs like this that are going to make a difference. So thank you guys very much. Everybody have a wonderful weekend. We resume 2 weeks from, or not next week. Next week is off. It's the first full week in April. That's April 5th, starting with Mike on teaching skills. Yes, John.
No. I was saying April 5th.
April 5th. Yes. Did I say 4th?
No.
I've got a 7-hour presentation all ready to go. Lots of big words.
Okay. Monday, April 5th. Thank you guys very much. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you as always, John, Mike, Kelly. You guys are wonderful. Love you guys. Have a great weekend.
Peace, everybody. Enjoy your weekend.